This is Primitive Outfitting, and you are listening to The Gritty Bowmen.
Chicken. Wow, wow.
Wow.
Nice.
And I'm not standing on my high horse saying I shoot a self-bow, because there's no way in hell I'm shooting a self-bow. When I say that, I mean that in a good Christian way.
As far as Cecil goes with me, I mean, I could really give a crap about that lion too much.
And all I was looking at was the tip of Aron's arrow. And it was like this and this, and then it was kind of shaking, and then it went boom, solid like a rock. And I'm like, oh.
He's like, I got to know if you hit anything or not. You never really show excitement, because I don't. I'm kind of always mellow. And this thing, ready to jerk a tear. I was running around like an idiot. Woo! You know, if you ever talk to anybody from Africa, they're all about hunting lions because they eat people. Yeah. The compound, I have total confidence. With this thing, I'm like, yeah, maybe. But the way that America works, we're so soft, like softer than baby. All of us, basically.
The shooting errors, I'm going to call it Matrix effect. I panicked.
And so we start going after this goat, but we keep looking back at the behind us because we're bypassing the one that we had actually seen. Yeah. I mean, if he was still in the same spot.
So my first 3 days, I didn't do much steering of the horse. I just kind of sat on it. Yeah, it was bad.
And sure enough, a big Billy pops up
over there.
Yep, on the opposite ridge behind us, because we've already committed to this new goat. And
Aron looks at me and goes, Plan B.
Yeah.
I've done lots of different archery trips with horses and stuff. The best way to do it is to get a sling for your bow and carry your bow. It's a pain for the hunter to carry the bow, but it's the only really safe, efficient way to dodge trees and willows.
Normally, we figured out my rangefinder, what I had it set on wasn't deducting enough, and I had deducted extra. It was 3 feet above it. I mean, it was so high that I literally was like, huh.
It was so high, the goat looked up.
Yeah. Well, that's Trigger. Trigger hit me like a linebacker once.
Again.
For fun, Trigger rolls and on his off time.
So he smells good.
When Brian, what he used to do, I'll do to you. When you're not speaking up loud enough, you'll get one of these.
On the tripod.
Nice. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. We are in the mountains in BC. These are Rocky Mountains, right?
Yep, this is the eastern slope of the Rockies, northern end.
And Aron, Snyder, and I are here in hunting camp with Bart Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger Oler.
Yeah. What was your middle name again? Chase. Roger, you got to chase him up the mountain, Oler. And as all of you know, I can hike fast. And on the first day, Roger was like, hey, let's head up to the top of this mountain. And we didn't see him again I saw his ass and feet for 4 hours.
It was a
You're
brisk
a quick little guy.
It was a fast-paced hike to the top through the bush. Yeah.
Well, when you get new hunters every hunt, you gotta see what they're made of.
Test their tensile strength. Brian and I looked at each other. I'm like, he's got to be just testing us. No one wants to walk this fast.
This isn't natural.
Yeah. And your brother Carrot Top was with us, and let me tell you, that's some flowing red hair. If he was a woman, he'd be brave. Right? He'd be Merida. He'd be Merida. I want my freedom.
Yeah, he's got a gorgeous red locks.
He's like business up top, party in the back. It's pretty long.
Yeah, so who's in camp with us? You've got your brother Domlin, who we hiked with.
I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, Domlin, Ada, and Davis.
And you can't get these guys to shut up.
Yeah,
they wouldn't. Actually, they wouldn't say if their mouth was full of it. Roger opened up a little bit later on, but.
Yep.
So we also have Wyatt and Mexinac too.
That's right.
Waco.
He's half Mexican, half Canadian.
Yeah, he's a real mess. Full out.
And also,
Aron really likes Waco, mostly because he prepares the food.
Yeah.
And his accent, he really rolls the R's.
Okay, cutting in here because it says likes the food. Let's back up a little bit. Again, Pinocchio here phones me and goes, you know, Bart, when we're back at Spike Camp, I don't eat as much as I usually do.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. Well,
Well,
how did I exactly put it?
rewind it before that. Bart and I were on a grizzly black bear hunt with Jeff Lander, and I think you saw me take down probably this
Yeah.
spring 6 boxes of Raisin Bran
Yeah.
amongst
In 2 days.
many other things.
Yeah.
So when we were getting ready to come up, you were like, we're definitely going to have to stop at the grocery store. And I'm like, no, Bart, I wouldn't worry about it. And I included Brian. Brian and I don't eat as much as you think in Spike Camp. And he said something, sorry, KE, you'll have to delete this out. You're so full of shit. There's no way I'm believing you. And we did eat a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I packed up for 6 people. And in the first night, we lost 4 days worth of food. Pretty much how it went.
Bart looks at me and like, we're gonna go hungry.
Yeah. It's going to be a blueberry hunt.
Yeah.
We started to cut back when we realized there needed to be some conservation going on.
I was only eating 3 PB&J sandwiches a day instead of 5.
Yep.
Well, I don't know. You kept pulling them out of nowhere.
And then we're in the grocery store shopping before we flew in. New relationship here. Hasn't been overly long. He's digging granola off the counter. What's it called?
It's called Love Crunch.
Love Crunch.
It's a new brand. I've never had it. But
Who grabs that off there?
Aaron did, I think.
I was looking
with
for
all-
love in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
Aaron got some Love Crunch. That stuff was good. It had little chocolate
It
bits and strawberries
Yeah,
in
it's
it.
not bad.
Whether I bought the Love Crunch or not, I've certainly been deemed
No,
the one
I
that
ended
did.
up paying for the Love Crunch, but I did not grab it off the shelf. I know it was Aaron.
It was with Aaron's stash of candies.
While we're on that note, I've never been made fun of for talking on the phone, so I've got a little bit different pitch when I talk to Amy.
Slightly. And you know it's coming up. He knows it's coming.
yeah.
So
I'll
he's
just get it
bailing
out of
out
the
right
way.
now. He is.
He's
Totally.
like, "Hi, honey. How are you? Did you have a good day?" I heard that every morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Bart's not afraid to
I like my version. Hi, honey.
Bart's not afraid to call you out on anything, pretty much.
No.
A lot of people would hear Aaron's voice like that on the phone and never say anything about it. For instance, me for the last 2 years. But Bart, you
called
can
it.
cross all those lines.
Yeah, I know. I can. You know what? You know the reason for that? Why I do it?
What?
Because I just learned what a pack rat was. I didn't know what a pack rat was before. Brian's like, hey, Bart, you know what a pack rat is? No. Bushy tail wood rat? No. No, I don't know.
Hey.
Oh, let me tell you, we have them in Oregon. They don't cross borders. International
Look,
lines don't cross.
I hadn't really paid much attention to their
Don't cross.
range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got suckered into that one. So, we're up here hunting goats, mountain goats primarily. But we had tags to hunt moose, caribou, and Patrick came with us, the owner of Kafaru.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick was out hunting moose. And
He's with Wyatt. Yep.
so we just wanted to cover in today's podcast kind of this whole experience we've had up here for folks to kind of follow along with the hunt and what it was like. And just kind of talk about it.
Had to show Bart and Roger a few things about horsemanship. I'm surprised
Yeah.
they weren't up on that at my level.
Here's another hand. Hey, Bart, we're gonna come. We're gonna hunt with bows, and get us lots of tags. Archery. It's, no problem.
Yeah.
My main focus with Roger was to get the goats. That was our goal from number one. Everything else was incidental. So that's what we headed up a valley that we've never been up before, looking for trails that we've never seen before, and we seemed to find both the valley and the trails.
We would have got up there a lot faster if Bart hadn't have lost it and taken us through a canyon.
Roger said, "Go high."
I think they did it so they could see me cross the river on
9
the
times.
horse. Oh, Lordy. So my first 3 days I didn't do much steering of the horse. I just kind of sat on it. Yeah, it was bad. I'll just say I probably logged in maybe a total of 17 miles on a horse before today, and that's in 40 years.
It was good.
Oh, Lordy.
I think we did 8 miles a day.
Anyone ever wanted to see Aaron in pain?
Dude,
We got to.
I'm telling you, I was a little worried once I realized how much horseback riding was going to be required for Aaron. And but I got to hand it to him. He can hold on.
Let's mention this right now. I've done lots of different archery trips with horses and stuff. The best way to do it is to get a sling for your bow and carry your bow. The side scabbards, everything else, I've tried them all. They don't really work. It's a pain for the hunter to carry the bow, but it's the only really safe, efficient way to dodge trees and willows and keep the bow.
And the bows are still on. They're still hitting good, so they didn't take that much abuse in the sense of,
A couple of your arrows wore right thin from the bush and brush running on them, right, on the shafts.
Yeah, I had the way the quiver is set up. There's a touch point where if I put pressure on the arrow, they rub on a bolt,
the knob,
on the sight. And normally it's not a thing because those arrows are never against your body like rubbing, but they were rubbing the whole time, and they wore a little notch in the carbon shafts. But then I put a little duct tape on there, and then it stopped.
Can you guys give any recommendations? Like for me, you try to tell someone over the phone that the bow is going to take a beating, and you need a solid bow with solid sights. Explain what you need really to get through on these horses.
Well, I mean, the one thing I would say is the positioning of your quiver at the time didn't really make a difference to me at all until we got on the horse. And if you had a one-piece quiver that got mounted at the top limb area, that'd be a problem. That'd be a serious problem because all the pressure would be on the call it the running end or the standing end of the arrow, the knock end, and it would basically be forcing, because of the bouncing around, no matter what, your broadhead would probably come out of the hood, and then since the pivot point where it locks in would be just in front of your body, your arrows would be, with sharp broadheads, would be flinging out. So you want to make sure that, the way that your bow or your quiver locks on and your arrows lock into it, put the pressure of the middle of the arrow against your body. Otherwise, it'd probably fling the broadheads out. And I had a tight spot quiver. What'd you have? You had the two-piece Hoyt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And both of those worked well. I would say the biggest thing would be, the bow sling protecting the end of your cams was a big deal, and your string and your peep. And then obviously your sight. Now you said this is relatively mild compared to...
Yeah, this country here has low willow. It's not a beater. I mean, a lot of places you're going to go with horses, the willow will be 12, 15 feet up over your head and scraping through. So your willow leans over a trail like this, and your horse puts his head down, and all your willow, you're the buffer zone, right?
Yeah.
And so you can take a real beating on it.
Well, I've hunted on horseback a number of times, but it's been in open country, kind of like Hell's Canyon, higher elevation, open country. It's not the bush. And so riding your horses through this is a totally different ball game. So I told you we had a quiver that our bow would slide into on the horse. Here, that thing would just be getting caught on everything. Most of the time when I rode, I had my bow on my shoulder, slung across my shoulder, and then I would actually put the bow behind my back as I went through the brush to shield it.
What everybody doesn't realize, the wilderness is so big up here, you can't have this perfect cut clear trail that goes down. There's new trees across the trail. You're riding around and you're breaking these jack pine limbs and spruce limbs, and they stick you. We all got bruises and scratches in 5-6 days where we've been jammed. So you need to have...
Well, the things that I think people don't think about, like you got a drop away arrow rest, you got the cord coming off there. I can think of 4 or 5 arrow rests on the market that would not have made it through what we went through, because you get those hard stobs that are coming out or branches, and when the horse is going, especially if you're like me and you take it like a man because you don't know how to steer for the crap. I saw that cord of mine, and the way that I had attached the cord, it pretty much would have just, it wasn't coming off, but if you would have had it attached differently, or a lot of those arrow rests, they just stick the pull cord through the rest and burn the end, and there's just like a burnt, little knob. That's not enough. It's not going to hold it from ripping through the abuse these take. So whisker biscuit, I'm not a fan of, but I can see how people up here would hunt with a whisker biscuit because it cannot be broken. Now, we had AAE DOAs, and those things got the kicked out of them, and they did fine. In fact, you kind of liked that one, didn't you? Or you didn't?
Yeah, I like that one. It's better than the ones I've seen in the past. By far, you can actually hold an arrow in there. Arrow up here has got to be able to take a little bit of wind, a little bit of lock. You got to be able to spin, catch it on a willow brush, and
climb with it,
knocked.
with the arrow in there because you're going to lean over. You don't know when that.
No, you got to be able to move. You got to be able to move, even at times, a couple 100 yards with your arrow knock.
Yeah.
And if your system can't do that, that's the animals that have got away on me in the past. Big animals.
Well, you lost a giant moose because the arrow wouldn't stand the rest
on the same incident.
Yeah.
And probably a new world's record archery Canadian moose gone.
Yeah. And the pins of your bow, they get the crap kicked out of them in the willow. So if you've got weak pins, you need to put a big cover on top of that thing when you're riding through the bush, or get a sight that doesn't have weak pins, because the biggest thing I notice is that horse, when it wants to go, if you're not quick enough to steer it, it could go through limbs that literally take all the strength you have to get through it.
Speaking of which, I died laughing a number of times riding behind Aron, because Aron's strategy on the horse, especially the first few days, was just to hold on.
Yep.
And so he didn't steer ever or direct the horse in any way.
And you know what we're lucky for this trip? Say it is when you do run into. We've seen lots of tracks. We had fresh sign, but we never actually had a grizzly bear blowout. When they blow your horses right in the trail, or they charge you, and horses scatter, and then you're blowing through some serious limbs with your equipment, and you got to be able to take that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And I felt like both of our bows can take a beating, get dropped, get slammed.
I fell down a vertical face and used my bow as an arrest system.
Yep. That was a
Everyone
pretty
was
slick
laughing.
rock.
They were two of the most clumsy guys I've ever seen in the bush, actually.
When there was one instance where we were riding along, and there was this, a 5 foot wide gap between two trees that all the horses have been going on, and Aron's horse, for some reason, at the last second decided not to follow the rest.
He's probably like, look, fat ass, I'm about to get payback. Let me veer left.
He veers left and goes under a log that's a fallen dead tree that's laying across this trail that hits Aron in the waist. And Aron is about to come off that horse.
I had the Van Damme face.
He grabs it with both hands, and I'm like, You're gone, dude. You were coming off. And the next thing I know, he's looking at it, and the look on his face was priceless. But somehow, at the last second, he grabs that log, and he yanks back, and just, with everything he had, he shoves it, and it snapped in half.
What I lack in common sense, I make up for in strength. Thank God, or I would have come off the back of that horse. I never did fall off the horse, which is amazing. Now, you
broke one horse.
Yeah, I didn't.
Launched from another.
Yeah. The one horse just laid up on me, and I hop off. We're in this, I will say, some of the most epic country, laid in the sand. It's kind of raining, fog's coming in, and clouds, and I can hear Bart yell, "Kick it!" And so I kind of went, "Kick it!" And I was like,
"Kick him hard!
Kick him hard!" And I was like, "Kick him like a man!" So then I kicked him like Pele, and he hopped right back up, and I'm like, is he tired? Like, no, he wants to roll in the sand. Well, I thought I broke my horse. He just kind of laid up on me.
What I loved was, "Kick it like a man" was the only thing he finally responded to.
I couldn't relate to anything else.
Yeah. Well, then the other time, being that my experience is less than zero, it laid up on me. It fell in a hole coming down, and it was a big
getting
hole.
bigger over the next 3 days or so. We're knocking it in.
Like the whole horse's ass fell in there.
And he started to kick a little, and I have very good balance and some pretty good hops. I flexed my butt cheeks as tight as I could, flipped my right leg over the top of its head,
pole vaulted
off that thing, landed on both feet, and then kind of ran off. I hear Roger looks back. That was a good ejection, Aron. Not bad. Or so, what'd you say?
It was about as good as I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Most people don't land on their feet.
No.
Oh, I landed on my feet and took off running. I was scared of the horse.
I was surprised by how much horseback riding we did and where they could go. I didn't know. I just didn't expect that. And when there was one area where we were going deep, and these are places you've never been before.
No.
So Bart's riding into country. He doesn't know where a horse trail is or isn't. But
it's old country, so we figured we could find stuff.
But that blew my mind because you're finding like moose trails and old horse trails where you're picking your way through.
I'm also riding like a 26-year-old horse, part Arabian Perch Morgan thing that I've had forever, and he hunts trail. So it wasn't. When you got a really good horse that knows how to hunt trail, it makes you look good. Really does. Helps out.
Well, when we got in here, we didn't see goats the first day. Or no, you did. That
The guys are riding the horses across the river bareback right now. Be a cool scene.
Yeah, that is cool. Your daughter's on one.
Yeah.
Your son looks like Paddington Bear with that hat.
Yeah, he does.
Cute little guy. Well, we got up there the first day, and then actually, while Bart's talking about how clumsy we are, somehow managed to drop his binoculars on a rock. How was that, Bart?
That was nice. I liked it.
He thought it was hooked around his neck, and he went to drop him.
Threw him on the stones.
He came back, and Brian had some 15 power loopholes, and Bart says, "Oh, I like 15s. I just tear it up with 15s." And about 5 minutes later, he spotted a goat way up in the cliffs. And then the next morning, I spotted one in the morning, and then that one you'd seen the night before.
They just started happening.
Yeah, I started seeing them everywhere.
And we got up on 3 goats and did some serious zigzagging in the cliffs. That was like a 45-degree slope on a happy time, climbing up. And
well, first leading up there,
We're almost to my favorite part. I'm just saying. Almost there. Keep going, Brian.
I'm wondering how you're gonna get up to where those goats are. So I'm looking up there, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit daunting seeing them up in those cliffs like that. And
The wake-up call.
yeah, and like you described, you told us to pack really light, not have heavy packs, because once you get up there off those cliffs, you start making deals with God.
Yeah.
Because it's
When I said it to him, with Brian at the start, I said, I've made a lot of deals with God on the side of the place. Too many.
But
too many.
It wasn't horrible. I mean, it was dangerous. If you fell, I mean, you were going to fall a ways, but it wasn't.
The problem with this rock is it's dry enough. There's not a lot of rain here, and it's dry enough that you get extra courage because you can go there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So sorry to cut you off.
No, you're right. But we got up there, and then
before I want to say something that I thought was interesting was there was all these willows, and the goats are looking off these cliffs, and they can see us down there as we're approaching. And so Bart asked us to stay in a tight formation, all 4 of us together, clumped up, walking through. And what was the point of that?
You want to be. You're better. They look up the mountains. They see elk. They see moose. They see everything, right? Mm-hmm. The only threat to them is wolves. So when you spread out and there's lots of movement coming at them in lots of different spots, then it's concerning. But if you clump up and move slow, it works great. You can get right in on them. I've done that with mule deer in open country too. Put 3 or 4 of these together, then you look more like
Something else?
something
A moose or
natural, yeah.
So we were clumped in a blob, just moving real slow.
Yeah.
Where they're looking down at us through those willows till we got up against the bluff where they really couldn't see down anymore.
Yeah, and then they forgive us for doing it. I call it, you move in a position in a way that the animals will forgive you. They forgive that sight and movement. Because those big open basins, they will catch your movement.
Yeah.
Right, but whether they relax with that movement or get nervous from that movement is what comes down.
I may have, that was a hell of a lot easier than trying to sneak around somehow where they wouldn't be able to see you.
Yeah.
Would have been, this was a direct path, where they could just watch you, but you just kind of sneak in and let them forgive you, versus trying to do some elaborate scheme and stay out of sight.
Do it, be Forrest Gump instead of a rocket scientist. Right? That's the way I look at it. Make a line, point A, point E.
That's pretty much what we did the whole trip. Went right at stuff.
Yeah, Brian talks about how aggressive a hunter Aron is, really going in after it. Both Roger and I are the same way. I know my brother Clay, cousins, I have guides that guide a lot. Aggression's good, man. I don't sit around. I'm not one of those guys that sits for 7 hours and waits for an animal to move. I'm a guy that sits there for 10 minutes and figures out how we're going to get the animal to move or us to move.
Roger and I waited 20.
That's a record.
We made her quite a while.
Then
I
you pretty
thought.
much looked at each other at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, we were like, those cliffs aren't that bad. No, wait, what? That's when I killed mine. We got to get to the point Bart's waiting for where I missed one. So we get up above, and Bart spotted the one bedded, and then the two. There was one down lower, two up higher, and Bart said, "You two go after that one." Talking about Roger and Brian.
Yeah, we split up. Roger and I went after a set of goats.
We
And
split
then-
fast too.
Yeah.
It
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
like we knew the plan.
Bart sees the goats and he's like, "All right, Brian, kill that one with Roger, and we're gonna go kill this one with Aaron." And it was done.
Yeah, it was a perfect setup because they're tucked right underneath, what, 18, 20 yards?
20 yards.
20? And there's a gut right there. Most time those goats are just going to roll around, and our goat was lower. So we moved down on, they should have rolled down and come right up the chute.
Yep.
We went down to ours, and it was weird because it was feeding, and we ran down there fast because it's ledged and rimmed country. We get down there and peek over, and it's already over on the edge bedded. That's the part
Beauty.
well, it was good, but it was
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and
Went
I
from
didn't.
50-yard shot to a...
Yeah,
I just say I didn't know it was feeding. Bart just said, when we get up to this rim, he's gonna be close. And I got up there in range, and Bart's got it on video. I'm laughing. Bart's like, "How far is it?" I'm like, "It's pretty freaking far." How far? And it was 96
Yeah,
then.
before we moved.
But then when we moved up, and
Yeah, it was confusing. You looked and seen him. He was
Yeah,
feeding
you
too.
bedded quick.
Yeah.
so I looked to the left. I saw one of Brian's goats, and Bart said, he said, if they see us, they should run right by them or just stand up, which is what we thought they were going to do.
Which is kind of what the rest of the goats did this week,
Yeah, except for those.
except for those two.
Which it ended up being that one actually, because we couldn't see it that well from the bottom. The one we think now was a nanny when we went back in there with a 2-3-year-old billy. But so we went down. I ranged that one, and the first shot, and it felt like a good shot, and I missed by so much high. I really
Like,
didn't
was
even
it feet high?
3 feet.
I was
probably.
trying to video, so I didn't get to see where the arrow
I
flight
did.
went over it.
It was 3 feet above it. I mean, it was so high that I literally was like, huh.
It was so high, the goat looked up.
Well, normally, we figured out my rangefinder, what I had it set on, wasn't deducting enough. And I had deducted extra. It was 78, I think, or 76. And I deducted a couple more. And with the first shot, I immediately, for the second shot, deducted 5 or 7, which still shot above it. And the goat's still out there, and Bart's remaining calm. Same shot, little lower, same shot. I deducted more, and that parted its hair. And that was the end of that. I missed 3 times in one sitting.
And Roger, I glanced over. We guys are at least 100 yards from us, right? I see the goat had that one goat turned and looked at us. It's not perfect. We're fine. Far enough away. We're lower. And then what'd they do?
Well, one goat kind of stood up, and I was watching him, waiting for the other one, because I thought the other one was bigger. And all of a sudden, I just see its back jet out. So me and Brian go up around, so we think they're going to come up, and they didn't. They come out like 130 running straight away.
Like whitetails, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're going.
Yeah, we're looking over the edge going, they're probably walking by right here, looking back at you guys every now and then. And then I look off to the left, and it's like 130 yards away. I'm like, oh, they're gone. They lit out.
Yeah.
But here's the hunting karma of things sometimes. You wonder why it works out certain ways, and you're like, why did that just happen? And it worked out great
Oh, yeah.
in the end for us.
Well, that one, Brian, I think you weren't pissed, but you could tell you were slightly frustrated. You didn't get a shot. Ends up it was a nanny. We couldn't tell from...
Yeah.
I mean, when Roger and I got to look at it the next day, we could see it above it plain as day for an hour.
We couldn't tell because the only time we could see it where it was positioned, it was a lot of heat waves and we're looking a long ways, right?
Yeah.
And it was the one bedded away.
Yeah, that was the
And it was
problem.
just so much bigger than the other Billy, because there was a Billy
Yeah.
that Roger and I
Yeah,
had
the
at
young
20,
Billy.
20
it was
yards.
it was an old dry nanny and a 2-year-old Billy and a 2.5-year-old Billy and then the other Billy that we shot at, right? So
I almost shot that other Billy. I don't know what I'm looking at.
yeah.
And Roger's there, and I'm like, at first I said, it's a kid. I think it's a kid. And Roger's like, he's got his binos. He's like, no, it's a Billy. And I was like, should I shoot him? I'll shoot him. And Roger's like, he's pretty young.
Well,
Then I thought, oh, dang it.
the nanny he was with had scent glands, or or
Yep.
whatever, and it had growth rings stacked on top of growth rings. She was
ancient
old.
Yeah.
And big bodied. When they stood up, when Roger and I were watching them, it literally looked like a bean right next to a softball. I mean, there was that much size difference. But we, that's the only time I did anything that was really stupid. I took off running after the goat, and I about got another shot at it, and I jumped across.
This is the one you missed.
Yeah, the one I missed. I jumped across the cliff that Patrick, his daughters, and my girlfriend and daughter would probably all shoot me for. And I looked back to see if Bart was following, because I'm like, surely he's going to yell at me for this one, and he wasn't there. I'm like, all right, I'm jumping. And then later on you were like, you're a grown man, I'm not going to tell you not to jump off of anything. And
He's too old to change.
yeah, well, I thought I could clear it. I did, but again, it's false.
I went above him. I was only above him about 30 yards, so it was like I went up to the point, and we had our backpack sitting there.
Yeah.
And Roger was over the side with Brian, so that those guys, you guys all ended up coming together.
Yeah.
But I was looking at where Aaron was walking out, and I saw a few areas where I'm like, how's he going to get from here to there?
It was an adrenaline jump. I jumped about from here to the camera across an opening that I probably shouldn't have, but I had goat on the brain, and I wasn't overly happy. I about went Winchester on my first try. But it worked out.
Yeah.
'Cause you shot 3 arrows at it.
Three.
Let's talk about that, because I think we haven't talked about that. One arrow.
Let's do it in
went
sign
over.
language, Roger.
Yeah. I told Bart and Roger, I said, Brian's pretty excited when I miss, because it generally doesn't happen, and I'll hear about that the rest of my life. And I
almost had to pick Bart's jaw up off the ground, because Aaron did some bragging when he first got here. I don't miss.
Yeah, not very often. Oh yeah, Bart. Yeah, everybody in camp. Have you guys ever heard of Aron Snyder, the great archery shooter?
Yeah.
Doesn't ever miss. Well, he missed. And the bad thing was I missed by so much I didn't even know what to do. I was like, how much do I deduct off that? And between
So
a
what
lot
are
of
the lessons learned here?
Well, the up.
We had updraft, and it didn't. There was no drop in the arrow. It actually, I remember seeing that. It just held like a plane. It just went.
And normally you get that arch, and that's what screwed me up. Is it was a 47 degree or 44 degree, I can't remember, downward angle. But usually you have the arc of the arrow coming, and there was no
at
arc.
that range, it's
At
gonna
it's gonna be
rise
an arc.
and fall,
And it just kept traveling up, and I could feel the updraft, and I'm thinking, well, if it was left and right, that's a little bit different. I'm used to that. And the coming straight up, I was like, wow, what the hell? And I ended up deducting 13 by the time I almost hit it. And so that's how much.
From 76.
From 76, yep. I ended up shooting it for 64 that last shot, or 63, whatever that is. So quite a bit. And it was, yeah, I mean, it was humbling. I mean, obviously that's what we do it for. But I wasn't like shell-shocked from it. I was more like, that really sucks that we climbed all the way up here and we got to go back home without a goat. But the next day ended up, Roger and I had one of the coolest days hunting in the mountains I've ever had. We spotted goats, or no, it was the day.
Yeah, it was the next
2 days after.
2 days later. The next day we went down up the valley tour, just looking, and we had rain. You don't want to play in the mountains when you have a bunch of rain, but we're just also seeing where we could get around. And Aaron broke his horse that day.
Yeah, that's when my horse broke.
And then the next day we split.
Well, we saw those goats, 2 big goats, one kicking dirt all over himself.
On that jaw, yeah.
Yep.
So that was the plan.
Well, I spotted the one, and I'm like, oh, he's killable. And you're looking like, what the hell are you talking about?
High.
There was 2 of them. One was way higher than the other one. And so when
I don't know if people can realize what we're talking about.
They will in the photos.
These are like vertical walls that go for thousands of feet.
Yeah.
And to see these goats on the side of these things, it's just mind-boggling. I can't.
It's big climbs. Like there's some 6-hour mountains here.
Yeah, that was probably 3,000 feet. We went up.
Yeah.
Roger and I, we wanted to be
Roger and
overachievers.
Aaron are insane.
Well, the problem is, Roger's
it's achievable.
younger and potentially dumber than I am. But we go up the next day and we split. You guys go up the right valley, we go up the left. And Roger, I have to say, he had gas so bad it would bring a tear to a glass eye. And he, about halfway up, was like, "You can go ahead and lead." And since my ass smells so bad,
Never felt bad for
You're
someone
living on
behind.
Mountain House and cheese, eh?
oh yeah, but that only lasted about 15 minutes, and Roger got tired of waiting for me and passed me again. But we get up there, and you see the nanny and the Billy in the canyon.
Yeah.
And we watched them for a while, and we kind of agreed to just walk up and see if they hung out or not. It wasn't going to blow anything out. And I'm looking to the left for these goats we saw yesterday, and all of a sudden Roger goes, "Where'd he come from?" And immediately I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I missed one." And he's on the wrong side. He just like transport, like Spock, beamed him in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I was over to the right above the nanny and the kid that just kind of blew out.
Yeah.
They seen us, started moving out. That
Were
way.
they in the bottom? You guys seen them first soon?
Right in the very bottom. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we didn't see them until we could look across the valley and see them, but they were high.
Yeah, they were right at
Yeah.
the creek.
Yeah.
Well, and that was interesting. As you guys were going up your canyon, Bart took me up a sheer rock face cliff or
It's bush.
cliff with horses.
He was telling me on the way back, he's like, "It was so steep. I thought my horse was going to flip over backwards, and my horse was eating on the way up."
Mountain horses, real ones.
Oh, unreal! And so once Bart rode me to the top of a mountain, it was right about the same elevation that they were across.
Yeah.
But we took our horses there. It was incredible. And once we got up there, we were looking across, and throughout that day, I had a little pang of jealousy because there were goats in that valley that we could see, and I was like, "Oh, I thought for sure you were going to be able to kill one of them."
We thought you might have seen us. We'll get
We
to that.
might
part
have
of
seen
it.
a white dot plummet from thousands of feet.
We'll get to that.
We seen your Billy going up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but Roger's watching the Billy, and I mean, it's basically, we thought it saw us, but it really didn't make any rhyme or reason what it was doing, because about the time we thought it saw us, it'd lay down for.
Yeah, I'd travel for a bit and lay down for 5-10 minutes, hop back up and keep going.
And Roger at one point, he's like, "Is this goat mental?" Because it
Yeah.
would lay on a cliff and then hop a cliff and then run up a chute. And
Was
so
he just tired, hot, trying to keep
I don't know,
cool?
Getting out of the wind or something.
whatever it was, he bedded in the wrong spot. So he finally, Roger and I are climbing and waiting, climbing and then waiting, up and down, trying to figure out the best approach. And finally Roger goes, "He just planted. He's bedded." So we did a full circle of that whole basin back to the glacier, which was some of the coolest country you could.
We went a long ways back.
Yeah, and so we're talking and we're like, "Well, let's just get up above him on these cliffs and we'll wait for him to come out and we'll shoot him." And I'm like, "Yeah." So we get over there. I'm like, "Yeah, let's just wait 2 or 3 hours. He'll come out." And well, we had a sandwich, and you made fun of me for eating another peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we kind of looked at each other. We're like, "Oh, it's not that bad over there." 20 minutes had gone by, so we were only 2 hours and 40 minutes shy of our destination wait time. And so we climbed over, I don't know, fairly quickly, dropped the packs and started maneuver around the cliffs. And I'm not shitting, it was hands and knees to the edge. Roger'd look over, like literally on his stomach trying to find it. And we were trying to figure out, well, you nailed it. You knew right where he was at. I thought he was one dip over. And we get to a point where we had probably climbed, what, 20 minutes? Around?
Yeah, probably like that.
20, 30 minutes, and we're sitting on this ledge, and Roger's like, "He's got to be right here, right below us," because we couldn't, everywhere else we'd seen, and the nanny and the Billy, or the nanny and the little Billy were still bedded to our left, so we didn't think that other goat had seen us and pushed everything out. And Roger's like, "Get ready on the right, I'm just going to start throwing boulders." Well, your area was boulderless. He was digging right there, and I even had to bring you a couple boulders
Yeah.
to throw.
Weren't you supposed to wait until it just stood up on its own?
Well, it wouldn't have mattered. He could have stood up and danced the jig because we couldn't have seen it. I mean, he was there was
There
a
was a roll, but he was tucked in there tight.
yep. And Roger's like, "Wait," so that lasts a while, and I'm waiting, nothing. And finally, I grabbed a boulder that was a 30-pounder and chucked it off. And then what? Probably 2 minutes or
Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes he come out.
he came out, and Roger was too far away. I didn't want to say anything, so he was walking too fast, and of course it didn't matter. He ended up falling off the cliff anyway. Where he first came out, I was a little nervous of shooting him right there. Mostly he was walking, and then he got out to about 30, and Roger's like, "There he is," and Roger figured out I'd already was on him, and then there was a shot I had at 44 of the top of his body, and I think, and then what did I end up shooting him at, 56?
56, yeah.
He circled around and stopped perfect broadside, and I pinwheeled him there, and Roger was like, the arrow didn't go in that far. But when I first had hit it, I saw it, and I think it bounced off the offside shoulder and bounced back. I broke 2 ribs coming in, and that's when the party started. That goat needed 5 more yards for victory.
Yeah, if you would have made it if you would have fell the right way, you would have just landed in a little patch of grass.
I felt like a golfer. All I could think of was lay down, lay down. And he rolled like maybe 150. And he stopped, and literally
150 yards.
Yeah, if this was his legs were uphill, and he stopped, and Roger's like, oh, he stopped,
and he's on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, and then his legs went,
And
and that was it. He rolled for quite a while, did a couple bunny hops, and then there's like 15 seconds of silence. And Roger's like, oh, he's still going. Oh, and then you hear shale. And Roger's like, I think he's at the bottom. And so you got to figure that was probably 700 yards to the top of that mountain that we climbed. And he rolled every bit of it down to the bottom. So we were excited. We got a goat. It was the most epic day you could ask for. Everything you want in a goat hunt. So I wasn't depressed. I told Roger, I was like, look, man, I'm in it for the excitement and the meat. If it's broken, it's no big deal. And yeah, it was broken. We got to the bottom, and that thing looked like a balled up gnarl of shit. It was bad. It broke off the right side with about 1 inch sticking up and about 5 or 6 sticking out of the left. It was was it 5 years old?
Yeah, 4 years old.
4-year-old.
4-year-old Billy. It's hard to age goats. It really is hard. So
it was like, I mean, it's a big-bodied goat. I mean, it was a decent goat, but there wasn't much left of it at the bottom. In fact, the photos are so bad I may have to post them up black and white because he's in sad shape.
He looks.
that's goat hunting.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, Bart. Like, you've been on how many goat hunts have you been on?
At least 70.
Yeah.
70 goat hunts. So, out of 70 goat hunts, how many have fallen like that? Is there Aaron? He truly has. Achieved.
No, it's not. He hasn't achieved something. He hasn't achieved no record. My record's probably. My record's. I don't know. It's. Anyone ever been to the Kootenays? Go to Connors Lake and look at the cliff wall on your left, and I dropped one off the top.
You don't know what they're gonna do though.
You don't. You do your best, and what they do when the goats hit, it generally heads for cliffs for safety. Everybody thinks, oh, it runs over there and commits suicide. No, they don't. They go there for safety, right?
Yeah.
And then they get too weak and they fall.
Yeah.
So.
Because you look at what they can do, right?
Yeah, the window for a goat from between falling and not falling lots of times is just a few feet, and you can't sit there. They live. That's where they live.
Yeah.
So you can't say, oh, I need to get them there. They don't go to the perfect spot. So you do your best, and like you said, they're 5 yards short of victory, right?
Right.
Yep.
And
didn't work out.
Sometimes it happens.
I don't know, but I was happy. I mean, I wasn't happy the goat fell, but I was. You
Happy.
couldn't ask for.
And
a
you know what,
better
Aaron?
day.
I've had them fall, 1,000, 1,500 feet before, rolling like that, and get down, and the horns are totally perfect.
Yeah.
So
I think it was that last vertical 200-foot head drop he did that probably did him in.
Yeah.
But it was cool. We went down there. We got some photos, and
We ate him this morning.
yeah, we did. We ate him
good,
this
wasn't
morning.
he?
He was.
Really
He was
good.
nice and tender. But we.
He is good. That goat is good. Like, I don't know. I've
was
never had
excellent.
before. Yeah.
It was
excellent.
It was actually better than any goat I'd had. But the pack out.
It's August meat too. August meat's always the best.
The pack out was quite shorter than it potentially could have been because he went ahead and did us the favor of
Dropping to the very
dropping
bottom.
to the bottom. Well, he dropped. You'll see in the photos. He dropped so far. He was in the willows that we climbed up 2 days earlier, at the bottom of the cliffs. And I don't know, what is it? Would you say 700 yards is pretty accurate to
Yep.
the top of that mountain?
It is.
I mean, Roger and I climbed as high as you possibly could on that mountain. Is where that goat bedded, and it was cool. I mean, I liked it. I wouldn't have done it any other way. It was pretty amazing. And so we even got out.
My daughter's coming back all wet with a horse halter. It's building character. She needs more of it.
Oh, that's funny. But we got back to camp right at dark. The horse ride, Roger does not walk slow or ride a horse slow.
Didn't do anything slow.
Nope.
And you said they get a little bit squirrely because of the smell of blood, the horses. And I was bleeding in my ear and nose when we got back. Brian's like, what happened? I was like, well, the horse was riding at a speed a little bit above my skill level. And we made it back quick right before dark. We got back. And it was cool. And then next day we got yours.
Yep.
And yours was, I think the biggest miracle of the actual trip was the fact that I actually got good video. I mean, you getting the goat is minor compared to me actually turning the camera on and videoing it.
If we couldn't get video of this goat, though,
we suck.
we do.
Aaron was wielding 2 cameras, 2 GoPros.
I had one over. So Brian shot his at 14 yards, 12 yards down, and I had one over the cliff and one at Brian. But that was a crazy stock too.
Yeah, but that day that you guys were killing your goat, we were way across the valley, way up high in this other basin. We rode up the horses up the steep stuff, and that's when we spotted 2 goats way at the back of this basin to create this whole adventure.
Which is interesting because we were so high, and we were watching goats in our little basin up there all day. They were just not stockable. They were up.
And one nanny had brain problems. She had something going on.
Yeah,
because the grass was greener on a lot nicer. She'd go. I've seen goats going bad stuff, but she's as bad as it gets before death becomes them.
I don't know what she was doing, but from that elevated position, Bart saw into this far basin we've never been in before.
Yeah,
and there were all these terraced levels of rock, which that's kind of like the first day's hunt. Those terraces cut into the rock like little ledges. They're bow hunting dreams.
They are. This country here, I mean, it's a comfortable goat population, but I'd rather have a comfortable goat population where there's enough to hunt and good terrain than a whole bunch in bad terrain. Yeah, because it's killable.
And I gotta admit, man, I have a wife and kids, and I want to live to see them again. And some of these cliffs, they're not anything to play around with. No. They're life and death. And
and these goats move so much that if they're in a bad spot one day, you can get them the next day.
Yeah,
they will position themselves.
And so with these terraced areas, Bart was over there. He's like, "There's a goat," and he sees this goat far away, 2 of them. He's watching them. He's like, "That looks big." Super excited. He runs. He grabs a spotter.
Yeah.
He looks like a kid on Christmas Day. He gets that spotter out. He looks over there, and he's like, "Oh, that's a good goat. That's a really good goat." And so, now we had ridden our horses through the bottom of that basin, right?
Yep.
And we had been glassing from different spots, but we were never elevated, and I think enough to see goats.
No, we didn't elevate to see as far into that basin as what we were. Mm-hmm. And we weren't elevated. Some of those terraces were 30 feet deep, maybe 40 feet deep.
Yeah.
And then they kind of had dirt on them, and they can roll in, and the other top terraces roll under. I mean, these goats just vanished.
They did.
It's a lot like mule deer and like the maroon bells, where you get
Take your word for that.
The terrain reminded me of that, where they'll get back on these cuts, and literally you could step 6 feet back and 3 feet up and see them, or just miss them completely because those terraces are so deep and they kind of sway back, and that vertical cliff hangs over, like Bart said, and that's how that goat Brian was. We were literally on top of it, and it got to a point where I'm like, man, I'm not sure. And you'll see on the video, I'm like, I don't know if Brian's even going to be able to aim that steep because it was literally straight down.
Almost tucked under us. But when Bart saw that goat across the valley, we couldn't go after him that day, it was getting toward the end of the day, but he's like, that is the perfect position. That is a big goat. We're going to kill him tomorrow. And he got real excited. And then, so we got back to camp, but the next morning when we rode in there, you couldn't see a goat one. Like, and you were like, they're there. Yeah. You just, we won't be able to see them from these positions.
I know what I think. That night when we got back to camp and when these guys raved in, Hi, Amy.
Oh yeah.
How are you? We got goat.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, keep going.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Every night.
How was your day?
How are you?
Oh, I can't wait to see you.
So we go in there and but as we're going up,
Yeah.
it looked like we were going to need to get above so we could see where that goat was. You were convinced that they were there.
Yeah. We just kept going up the valley to see back into those terraces, and in doing so,
You found
another one back to our left.
a nice
Just
goat,
popped up.
really beautiful, Billy.
It's actually funny because we're all three sitting there and we can hear a whistle,
And this valley is like chock full of marmots,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
and they're like, they're making that whistle sound. And I'm telling you, Bart makes a marmot whistle.
well, I looked back and he's glassing, and I'm like, oh, it wasn't Bart.
Well, I would whistle, then I'd glad.
And then I heard another whistle.
We'd
and I
pop
looked
up,
back,
look at Bart, and no, he's not.
and then I looked
Wasn't
back,
Bart.
and he's like, "What are you idiots doing? Get over here!" And then we're all creeping now, and he's like, "Come on!" And then finally, you just get over here. And you, it was pretty funny.
Let's go.
And so we start going after this goat, but we keep looking back at the behind us because we're bypassing the one that we had actually seen.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was still in the same spot, and sure enough, a big Billy pops up
Over there.
on the
He's a
opposite
big one,
ridge behind us because we've already committed to this new goat. And
Aaron looks at me and goes, Plan B.
yeah, because this other goat that you spotted was highly stockable.
Yeah, and the why I was hurrying, because it's terraced, and then it looked like it went into an open shale bowl to the big glacier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was on what looked to us from the bottom like he was in the top terrace, which in the end he wasn't.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hurry because if he got into that next glacier bowl, there's no archery chance we were done.
Right. And the one thing that was interesting throughout the weekend or throughout the week was the wind and how we didn't pay any attention to it. So tell us about the wind up here.
It's mountain wind, right? But there comes a point, everybody's like, oh, the wind this and the wind that. And yes, the wind is a factor in hunting. But there comes a point where you get to it where you say, all right, forget the wind, forget everything else, go kill. Because if you sit there and let that play in your mind, you put your doubts and you change your route, or you're like, oh, I can't go there now. The wind's got me. I must circle back over here. You're in the mountains. The wind goes that way. The wind goes this way. Your wind goes down. There's a point where in the mountains right now, it's midday, you have updrafts, right? Mm-hmm. Consistently, it's going to be updrafts. So just go for it. Get up around him. We'll kill him.
When he killed his, and we were looking, remember that tuft of hair that blew up? That was a very good example. It didn't, you could fill it up draft from right to left, but if you watch that tuft of hair, it went straight up. Straight up. And I mean, that
We
hair's
had
not
some
going to
risk
lie.
on it with it, right?
Yep.
But at the same time with the risk, I looked at the mountain, the way it's shaped. The terraces come down and then it rolled into the mountain, and then we could have yes, we could come across, but with up, you also get in.
Yeah.
So we went low, took a chance on low. You risk that. We're about 300 off where he was. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get up on the round, so if he did roll that top round, we were in position to
get a
do
shot.
something.
Yeah.
And so that's what we went for. And then in the end, we got up there. And then it's like, which terrace was he on? Because there was like 3 more terraces we couldn't see.
That was
confusing.
That was a show because I'm looking, and I even told you, I'm like, okay, we're standing where Bart told me it wasn't. It's got to be over here. And then that other goat
Showed
popped
up at the top end.
at the end of the basin.
So there was a third goat
And
as
I'm
we were
thinking-
looking for this goat over the ridges, and you're like, "There's a goat," and I'm like, "If that's him, that's had to run."
Yeah, he was.
I mean,
he was booking it like Carl Lewis to the back of that thing.
Yeah.
So
But
then we
when
started.
you're in an area with just comfortable goat population, you have to always kind of presume that it could be the same goat, right?
Yep.
But that basin ended up stacking up with 3 billies in it. So
But yeah, it was funny from at this point. I just kind of was hanging back with the cameras, and it was like one ledge, then the next ledge, then the next ledge, and we
It
got
was like
to
an Easter egg hunt.
oh yeah, and we got to a point where I'm pretty sure we all agreed it's got to be within 30 yards left or right of.
well, Roger come up to me and he pointed up that spot where you remember that flat
Yeah,
rock,
the
whatever.
little where the water was coming down.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind
and
of
I-
marked it in your brain.
And I looked at it from the 2 white marks that you on that rock wall. Remember the
Right.
2 white marks? That's what I saw with those 2 white marks. And I just stood back because I'm like, all I got to do is remember to turn the cameras on, and I see Brian's face light up
Brian,
like a fat
we both
kid in
step
front
up.
of a cake.
We both step up on one more of a point, and he's on the edge of it. And from his view,
It curved in a little
you can
bit.
see it.
Yep. Just a little bit. Like I happened to be in just the right spot. Then I looked over and I'd looked down there twice already and didn't see anything. And finally I leaned way over as far as I could in this little curve.
And these guys go, bro. He's like,
It's like
He was jacked.
I was excited, dude. I was like, oh, I saw him. I was like, he's right there. And I felt like, I mean, we were right on top of him because he was 12 yards.
well, you
14.
looked and you were like, what do I aim for? And I said, put your 20 right on him. And Bart goes, he's only 14. I'm like, just put your 20 on him. Put your 20 on him.
Yeah.
And I was up from
14. He might have been 18 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
was right there.
I was, what, 6 yards to the left of you guys?
If I had to jump on that goat,
You could
I would
put
have
him
came
home.
away without injury. He was that close.
Well, what was funny is I get a little excited
goal was
myself, but
squished.
I have to be quiet because I'm a few yards from them. And I'm looking down and I saw a different angle than they did of the goat completely, which changes things. And I thought he was a 10-inch goat, mostly I think because he is so wide.
Yeah.
And so I'm shitting my knickers because I'm like, shoot this freaking thing now, shoot it now. But I'm just holding the camera over like, shoot, just shoot it. And you were shooting a back tension.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get that thing to go off.
And the rock had a roll, so he had to get out.
And when you see the video, he pulls back and he's aiming literally like this. And I'm like, ooh, that's going to be a tough one. It's hard to get that thing to go.
Yeah, and then before I drew on the goat, here I am just, rookie. I just haven't put eyes on animals like this before, on goats. And I looked down there, and after I'd spotted him and I got your attention, it was like, right there. And you looked at it, and I'm like, is he a good goat, or is he, I don't know, and you're like, yeah, he's good. And so...
Then I grabbed your pocket when you're leaned out there.
Yeah.
But for the record, I wasn't going with you. I would let go of that pocket in a second.
But I knew you were going to kill it. I mean, like, with that, I've shot a lot of downhill shots with a back tension, and it sucks. I mean, there's no way around it. You're not a back tension, a hinge release. And I was, in my mind, I'm thinking, if I hear the click and there's a pause before it goes off, we're good. And you did it like a pro. Pulled, almost to a point where I'm like, he's going to collapse from holding that damn bow back. And then it clicked, and there was like a 2 to 3 second break, and I'm like,
looking at both cameras.
both cameras like, am I on? Wham! And he hammered it, and then I swung the other camera around to the goat, and who ranged it? Somebody ranged it
Bart
again.
said, shoot him again. I was always getting another arrow
you
out.
ranged him.
Someone was just guessing. No one was ranging.
You must. I think you yelled 40 yards.
Yeah.
Somebody yelled 40, and I put my 40 on him, and he was still limping along.
You're right, because that you can see because I put one camera in the other hand, because one camera is filming the other camera and the other camera is filming the goat.
Thought you ranged it.
Yeah, but it was 40, but it ran another distance, and you Kentucky winds it, and it split the right hip out. He hit it perfect going
Put the
away.
ball joint in half. Yeah, definitely.
And,
Yes.
and
Slowed him down.
when it hit that ball joint, you can hear me on the video. I'm like, oh, that's
That did
going to
it.
slow him down. Yeah, or whatever.
Yeah.
That should do it. And I was when you hit these goats. I asked Bart earlier in the week. I go, how many times do you hit one and then it like climbs up onto some cliff and then dies and gets stuck, or you shoot it and it goes in beds and dies? And he's like, not very often, but thanks for asking, because now it's probably going to happen.
Yeah. I said I haven't had it happen, but odds just went way up.
Well, when you split that rear hip socket out, he wasn't.
That was the
climbing
thing,
up.
is I knew the shot
Archery
was
guys always
fatal.
ask that on cougar. How many times these cougars hang up in a tree? Well, not very often, but now they are.
Well, the thing is, when I hit him, I knew it was fatal, but I didn't know how long it would take. And that window between the fatal hit and how far he can move, or where he can move, what cliff he might go find refuge on and then fall off of, you just don't know. And so it's like we were on a mad dash to put as many arrows in him as we could, as fast as we could. And so when that second one, though, hit that rear socket, I was like, and I saw him go just boom, and just took his rear end out. I was like, oh, that's good. And then he just sort of drug himself on the flats. down.
I didn't dash. I was pretty comfortable with the result.
All I could think is I don't get like I didn't want it to fall off another cliff, and I took off like an idiot. I mean, full speed, like running, because I'm thinking, don't fall off a cliff. We don't want them both all broken up, and I don't know how far we sprinted for.
And it doesn't take much of a cliff to break them.
No, 150.
Well, especially this goat, he's got really long,
Fine points.
Fine points.
We got around that corner, and I actually remember to turn the camera on again, which I have to say is a miracle. And Roger,
Which he mentions on the camera. I don't remember what you said. You got both cameras going. I got both cameras going. I'm a camera.
Yeah, like Marty Stauffer. But
I will laugh at that one. Well, that's funny.
I'm amazing. Something like that.
Roger ranged it again, and it was 50. It was a tough shot because he had to skim it right over the top of a rock, and that one really did it in. And yeah, it was when we got up to it. I'm like, Bart, I think that's a 10-inch goat. And you measured the width. It was 8 wide, which is crazy wide for a goat.
Yeah.
Pretty
It's
goat.
cool to have that width. Adds to their whole appeal and look. And he's got big pipes. The main part, color, the lighter colored gray or brown that come up, we generally refer to them as the pipes than the hooks, right? And he has big pipes than sharper hooks, but his pipes come up and out, so he's deceiving. He really presents well.
Yeah.
Real photogenic goat.
He's and the body's way, way bigger than I thought a goat would be.
And honestly, he's a comfortable body. There's 2 classes above that.
Yeah.
There's one class of goat that'll hit 350 pounds. That'll just leave you.
I read that.
That 2 people can't move it. You can't pull him.
This goat was probably 200 pounds when you hit.
Oh, he's over 200. He's pushing the 250 mark, but he knocked another 100.
He reminded me of a big mule deer. Is what he seemed like.
So this country we're in, like, this is my first ever mountain goat hunt.
Yep.
How does this country and the goat population and stuff compare to other places?
Common, really. It's just common average for goat populations. It's not poor. It's not great. The terrain for archery. I mean, we killed 2 archery goats in 4 days and had another really good opportunity. So we had 3 good opportunities.
I had to bring that up again.
In
4 days.
3 in 4 days.
Yeah, in 4 days. In a country we don't know, so you can't knock that.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm used to going into basins where you see. You like to have mountains where you can see 10, 15 goats in a basin, and here you might not have any or 2 or 3, but it's big mountains and lots of ravines, lots of crevices. So we by no means really discovered all the goat population.
Yeah.
There's lots of nooks and crannies for them.
Well, it seemed like that one day when we were glassing up the valley in the morning from camp, or in the evening actually, we counted like 7 goats in that basin you and I went into.
The best goat we did, best day we had, we seen 13 different goats.
Yep.
On record. Yeah. I seen a couple goats well over 10, but I didn't want to waste them on bow hunters.
That was funny actually. After
that one Plan B goat was beauty. He was a beauty.
Well,
he's a beauty.
We got the goat kill with me and Roger. We got the goat kill with Brian, and then we're photoing and videoing. And Bart looks back and says, "Don't give any bow hunters any bright ideas." Or so, what did you say?
I can't remember.
Yeah, because you got to be able to go. I mean, I'm not guiding up here, but I've been on a lot of goat hunts, and the one thing I would say is if you can only make one approach one day and you're burnt out, you're going to be in trouble because you got to be able to do multiple days and multiple approaches.
Not only that, you got to be able to take a load off the mountain because you can't expect your guide to take everything.
Yeah.
You got to load up, same thing. And what you go up the mountain with, you have to come down with, plus another 40, 50 pounds.
And if your partner in crime falls off a rock, you got to carry his crap too.
Yeah.
Brian fell off a rock on the way down.
I slipped.
Yeah.
Twisted his ankle pretty good.
Yep.
He said ankle, but what I heard was, I hurt my baby toe. My baby toe's hurt.
Oh, well, all I could see what you think of when you fell was, give me all your we got an elk hunt in a week. We're not going to stretch.
Yeah. Aaron had to carry the rest of the goat out. I twisted it pretty good off that. So that's one thing. These rocks, when they're wet, it's a completely different thing.
You can't go up the mountains and play around on bad rainy days because you're gonna lose.
Because we were jumping from rock to rock, and with these dry rocks,
They're grippy until
they're
they hit.
grippy.
But you step your boot into one bit of water and then step on them, and they got that white slime.
And that
Big
rock
slime.
you slipped on, it had a ledge to it, and I didn't fall on it because I put the middle of my boot and it wrapped my foot around it, and then I jumped down quick, and you got the heel of it on, and it shot your foot down in a hole.
There
right?
were willows covering the rock,
Yeah.
and the water was running over the rock. And I just saw the dry rock, put my right foot on the dry rock, and then I stepped through the willows. I just thought the whole thing was dry.
Yeah.
And as soon as I hit that rock, I went down there's like a slick as snot. And when I slipped off, my foot hit this pile of rocks and just
He made
Rolled
some
over.
funny noises.
it hurt for a minute.
It was kind of like
We should move on. Talk about other parts of this hunt.
All I remember was when after that he was going, Mom.
We talked about the 3 misses. We got to talk about that. It sounded like a cow getting hit with hail. It was kind of a.
Yeah, there was
And I
a
was
little bit
like, Bart, Roger, hold up. We got a man down.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of sharp pain for a moment. Hey,
But
there wasn't a single tear,
Aaron-
was there, Roger?
Aaron-
Not a single tear.
I instantly reached for a good round solid rock and put them out, just in case.
I gotta say though, me and the lame guy, we were still beat you guys by a good 20
Thank
minutes.
you, Roger.
Yeah. Well, Bart and
Back
I
to the horses. We
stopped-
had all the horses saddled,
We
besides Bart's, because Bart can saddle his own.
We stopped and talked for a little bit. We thought you guys were definitely going to be slower. But Roger, he has no compassion. He's like, look, you gimpy son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's what it was.
We're not going to get beat by the 2 old men. Then he kicked Brian in the ass and down
No,
the
he cut a willow, got behind and whipped him.
Oh, dude. I was like, Roger wasn't slowing down for anybody.
Nope.
He does not. And so I'm like, just go. But after I got moving on it, I knew it would kind
would do
of
it.
feel better.
I looked back once in a while, I was surprised how close you were.
If you are coming, you guys, on a goat hunt, and I've been so many of them, and I've helped people that have needed help up mountains and that. But you have to help your guides out. You have to put the proper work etiquette into preparing yourself before you come. You have to tone yourself up, and everybody says, no, you can't totally get ready for a mountain hunt, which is true, but you can do some cardio. You have to put some effort in, and a week before doesn't count. You got to go 6-8 months before and put a little bit of dedication into it. And otherwise, excuse me, if you hurt yourself on these mountains, you can die.
Yeah.
You can't get help to you fast enough, and so yeah, you can die, and that's reality. So make that effort.
Yeah, it's serious country here. You know, we're waiting for a plane to come in and get us. You know,
Yeah.
You can't just get
It's-
to help right off the bat.
Yeah, you have to dig in, and if you're hunting with a bow and you don't want to adapt to a rifle, if the situation calls it, you have to be okay with going home with none and not point fingers at people. When you hunt a whole trip, you're not gonna. There's nobody out there with mountain goats. You know, if you're batting 30-40% with archery, you're really doing good, and it's just because the country's not conducive to being kind.
No, I mean, with the goat population the way it is, I mean, it's like you said, it's average.
And
Common.
if you can't shoot 70-80 yards, I always hear this whining. It's unethical. Don't shoot over 60 yards and that. Well, I don't shoot bow, and I can pick my cousin's bow up and put 2 in a pie plate at 60 yards with his bow. There's no excuse for it. You have to practice out 70-80 yards so you're lethal at 60-70 yards. I mean, Aaron's shot was at 76 yards. You have to be able to shoot that shot.
What was depressing? I hit how far was that dandelion thing I shot? I think I shot at a dandelion at 80.
It's our moment. Don't ruin it.
And
pinwheeled
I
it.
pinwheeled it later
This is
on.
the same day.
Gotta say, dandelions don't count though.
Well, that was the problem. I killed the hell out of a dandelion at 80. I just
But
wanted
not
to
a
make
goat.
sure the bow was on, and And
Couldn't blame the bow.
you guys were like, well, wait for the wind. I'm like, no, I want to make sure the bow is on. And of course, I smoked it. And I'm like, I probably should have aimed off 6 feet. So I had a reason. Instead, I just hammered it. But it made me feel good that I'm like, all right, the bow's on. It's just me or the wind or whatever it was. And I mean, having said all of that, while we're making fun of me, which is definitely needed.
It's fun.
You really need to not. I mean, I take abuse well. Don't get down on yourself if you're only as good as your last shot. And if your last shot was bad and you let that really get to you, it can mentally affect you. And I wasn't.
What did we do after that?
What's the?
After the first goat, we just walked over and said it happened and went on.
Yeah, I mean, you gave me a little bit of crap, which I was fully deserving of. But you don't really. Don't let it.
I didn't actually chew on you or anything.
No. You made fun of me like I would have made fun of anyone, and that's the thing. And Brian was definitely basking in the sun about me. Whatever I missed, Brian is pretty excited. But what I'm getting at is
No,
liar.
it's not true.
Would you say he was excited I missed?
He was a little bit.
He came up to me privately. He goes, "I thought I was saying this."
I think it's so
You can say
funny.
not true all you want.
I think it's
He
fun
did too.
to enjoy. I do think it's great, but I'm just as happy or happier when he does hit the animal too. So
I don't think he is. Honestly.
And it doesn't. I mean, the thing is don't let it get you down. I mean, the hunt's not over. It's all up to you. Just keep putting effort into it. I had no doubt we were going to get goats or at least get more opportunities because we were seeing them. We're in shape. You guys know what you're doing. It wasn't like I was worried. Now, I will say I was hoping for a less windy, closer shot the second go round. And Roger walked us right into a, goat
Good
sleeping.
situation.
So it was
here's
fun.
the deal, though. Like I think it's good. It feels good to know that even guys that have killed as many animals with the bow and shoot as well as Aron, that they miss too.
Yeah.
And
they hear about it when they do. That's it. It'd almost be better if
if I miss, it's like, well,
I had just killed an antelope at I don't even want to say it, a ridiculous distance, and I'm thinking, and I had told Roger, I'm like, man, I can shoot, I can shoot pretty good, and when I missed those 3, I'm like, it's a long trip back to camp. I'm quite certain I'm going to hear about this one. Holy moly! But I wouldn't change anything about the hunt because Roger and I wouldn't have gotten to go on the stalk the next 2 days after, and that was
worth it.
That was amazing. I mean, it was everything. Both stalks, both of the hunts that were successful, was everything in my opinion that a goat hunt should be: cliffs, climbing, the whole 9 yards, high angle shooting. Yours,
big ass grizzly walking up and down the trail every day on top of a horse.
That one had paws the size of my head in that sandbar back there. I was like, holy cow! But Brian's goat was one of those ones where everything really fell into place, from the video to the shot to the stock to everything was.
It was
amazing.
crazy good. It was the most video goat of all times between Roger's cell phone, my video camera, and your 2 cameras. No goat gets 4 angles.
No.
You can see he's got a shit-eating grin like Howdy Doody on the GoPro. He's got his camera out and he's like permagrin, holding his camera out. I'm like, he's excited. He's gonna get this on film. Yeah, it was cool.
Well, let's talk about another thing. I noticed. So, Bart, I've been watching all week, both you and Roger, and we talked about this a little bit when a guy has experience hunting compared to like a Roger, who has some experience hunting now. That basically the time that he spends out in the field as an outfitter, as someone who's going on hunt after hunt after hunt.
I'll explain where you're going with that too. What I was saying about Roger is he started with me at 16, and he's 20.
Had his voice changed yet?
21 yet. I got to watch it all.
All the way up to the thick beard.
From choir to man. No, but anyway, he started at 16, and so a lot of fall seasons in the north is August to mid-October, right? 2.5 months of hunting experience. Where someone like Roger and Wyatt Gentles is here start August and they go through, and cat season ends in December, so they're getting 4 months, and then between just going on trips to Mexico and other stuff we do after that, and then spring bears, you're getting 6-7 months a year of guiding in the field experience compared to someone that has 2.5 months. The amount of advancement, like Roger's 5 years, is really worth 12 or 15 years in the field. And by the time he hits 30, he is already more than 2 careers of experience. And that's a difference for advancement in a hurry, because he's 21 years old and can rip an animal apart between skinning him with his fist and butchering him up, deboring him, throwing him in the pack, heading the mountain, off the mountain, keeping the head out in the field, ripping the knuckles out, salting them down, packing the horse, helping put a shoe on the horse, everything. You just advance so much more doing when you're a multi-species guide.
Well, when I'm watching you, one of the things that's impressive is how you pick, like we talked earlier, how you pick trails, but how you pick routes to go after an animal. It's like second nature. You just pick it. You look at the side of the cliff and you're like, got it. And then we take the route. You can see whether you could make it or not make it from the ground. And some people, without that experience, they look at that cliff and they're like, oh, I got it. And they don't got it.
Yeah.
I could see them getting
It
stuck.
changes lots.
You've probably been, you said 70 goat hunts, what, 150 sheep hunts?
Yep.
Yeah, and then what moose?
Lots.
Yeah, I mean,
More than goats.
what I realize, I mean,
In my career, it's probably 1,500 animals.
yeah, and that's what I was
And
about
that's-
to bring up. And I know your brother pretty well too, right? And so what people don't realize is a successful, let's say a moderately successful hunter in the lower 48, or anywhere, right? Canada as well, that just hunts and has a career, normal career. You shoot 1 or 2 animals a year and you got a full-time job. That's pretty good, right? You're doing all right. And then you take a guy that, let's say he shoots 10 animals a year. Yeah, a different level. Then you take an outfitter, a guide, where it's 20 bears in the spring.
It's 50, 60 animals a year.
A year, exactly. So it's just a level that it's, when you're doing it for a living, you're going to have more experience than anyone
Things
else.
you know.
Roger, since New Year's, how many desert sheep you been on?
5,
5 desert sheep. August, stone sheep.
3,
3. Now,
2
how,
goats,
2 goats. How many black
No.
bears?
25,
How many and a grizzly bear?
1 grizzly bear, yeah.
And how many wolves?
3.
3.
So yeah, that's a lot of experience. And
And then September's just gonna start for this year.
yeah, oh, it's crazy. And what really opened my eyes when I was in the territories was, I think we were on 27 hunts in 2 months or something like that I was on, and I'm like, well, I mean, you just learn a lot, breaking down the animals and everything else, and
Yep, you learn a lot.
for me getting made fun of by your brother, I think I'd fleshed out 2 faces in my life, because we just pack them back to the taxidermist. I think it took me 4.5 or 5 hours to do a moose face, because I'd never done one.
And like when we got in with Brian's goat the other night, I just sat there just before we were going to bed for 20 minutes and did the knock off the face, right?
Would have
That's-
taken me an hour and a half.
Yeah, you just do it.
Yeah.
So you just get lots of animals. Like Roger's been on 33, 35 animals already this year.
Yeah. It's impressive to watch, just to observe the both of you, like, move and do your thing. I think you learn a lot. I learned a lot. I've learned a lot from Aron, hanging out with Aron that I didn't know before. And same here, watching you guys. One of the things that last night when we were in that pasture, and you had talked to me about pressure and release and animals and stuff earlier, and then I was watching you in the horse pasture trying to catch one of those horses.
Yeah, not my horse.
Horse is not yours, and I saw you, doing all this stuff that you were describing.
That horse still kicks shit out of him, though. He never did catch it.
No, but I only worked in 10 or 12 minutes, and if I had 2 days with that horse, you wouldn't have that problem anymore.
Yeah.
I could relieve that problem. That horse has never had the release of it, but if hunting is pressure release.
Tell me about this, because I watched you work that horse, and it was like within 10 or 15 minutes, it was almost ready to let you walk up to it and touch it.
Let me walk up and touch it and actually use it for the rest of its life, not just right then.
And that right there to me is like that is a lifetime of experience interacting with horses. And is that how you learned that would apply to animals too,
it
like
is.
hunting animals?
Breaking horses. There's an old saying amongst horsemen: to become a better horseman will make you a better hunter. And it's just understanding pressure and release. It's just meet and greet with people. It's the same way, right? Actually, the better you can meet and greet and be around people and feel comfortable with it, the better hunter it will make you. Because it's this, right? It's the pressure. It's too much in. If you can understand animals and where their safe zone's at, where their pressure is, when to give them pressure and when to give them release. And I've done it with ewes and lambs on the mountain when you're trying to get to a ram and they're there. All about your shoulders and positioning, the way they're looking, and how you can dip a shoulder and dip the other way and pressure, can put some pressure into their flanks, can drive them directions or spin them. Or they can be facing to the right and you can back off, dip your shoulder right, and they'll spin through you and go the other direction. And those are little things to navigate and direct and move animals that over the years, if you learn it, can apply. And everybody might be, BS, whatever. Well, you're saying BS because you haven't learned it.
Well,
if
I
you
know.
learn it, you can absolutely do it.
Like I used to work with a lot of dogs and train dogs and play around with dogs, and
It's the same.
I learned too. Like we did different styles of training, all different types, and but it was amazing to me, like even to the point of using the clicker or a sound or whatever to cue the dog and mark behaviors that you want them to capture, and kind of progressing into certain movements until they figure out what you want.
You know what really teaches you pressure and release is bears.
Really?
Yeah, because too much pressure they charge. Like that was too much. When you're a dog guy too, I do a lot of dogs. Roger does too with the bears. And you get on a bear you don't want, and you're trying to pick dogs off of it, right? And you're sliding in there and grabbing by the tails, and you might be on a bay up, and you have to pick your right timing. And at the right time, the bear will present itself and say, "Okay, do it." And other times they say, "Not now." And if you pick the not now, you're gonna know.
That's a little. It's interesting because, watching you do that, I could see how it would apply, especially in close quarters.
Yeah.
Especially if you're running dogs on animals, because you do get close.
You get really close, and sometimes the bears say that's too close, and you better back up and give them the space. But 2 steps back, they'll release again, right?
So, what do you mean by pressure and release? Like
Pressure and
people
release
listening-
is this, okay? And it's all this. I'm meeting you right now. You can feel that. Like you're not
So
comfortable.
Bart's hand is like an inch from my face.
Yeah, you're not liking it.
Yeah.
He's
then
giving you
then
the
when I go
Robbie
like
dinner.
this, it's comfortable again.
Oh yeah.
There's the pressure.
Don't do that.
Don't do it. Exactly. And that's where animals, the bears, sometimes they're 50 yards, 60 yards. And other times they're 10, 15 feet.
So when you give them the pressure, you're doing that on purpose. You're
giving
making them
the purpose.
uncomfortable.
I made that like the horse in the corral. I made the horse feel the pressure when it was going away from me. I give it more pressure. When it dipped its eye and gave me its head, I backed and give it release. And I was drawing the horse out to me and greeting the horse, teaching the horse to greet and face me. And that's where its release was going to come. That's where I was giving release. When it would pop its butt out to me, right, I would put pressure on not directly behind him, off to the side, right?
Yeah, stick your arm out or something.
Yeah,
You have a rope in
and
it.
I wasn't getting him a line to kick when they throw to your butt. It's serious, and he was serious. But I was just teaching him how to turn into the pressure where he can find his release. I was giving him a release.
Okay.
Because too many times he's been caught by this being forced, and backing like this, and someone finally gets their hand on him, and thank God that horse is good enough to give him a release. He's never been taught to actually turn out to you and come to you for a release, right? And they'll learn that. And the animals, you can actually stop animals at times with your shoulder and your movements. And a lot of bow hunters out there don't even realize it, but I bet you when they stand up, the way they move their shoulders or the position, they'll get up and just go for a kill, and they might rock and turn, and they're given a release. And that animal will hold for that second longer, where other guys might get up and step into the animal and try to draw their bow, and bam, they just blew out. If they would have rocked back 6 inches. There's all those things that people might do it and not realize it, but it is. It's if I meet Aron Snyder, right, I'm not going to face talk him. Only so long, then I'm going to get slapped.
We've
Right?
talked about that before. We have a buddy who's a close talker.
Yeah.
He's got the
It's
Asian
awkward,
close face.
bud?
Oh, I got a back up, do that, and push them away. But it's the same. It's funny you bring that up with antelope because they're a curious animal. I don't know if it was you or I was talking to somebody about it. Oh, Frank, maybe. I'll get behind the bow and I tuck my head down and I rock it back and forth. It's not as much pressure release. They don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And they keep coming. And so if I just stood up with my bow down and was like this, they're going to run. I get something in front of me, the bow, I keep my eyes away, and you rock back and forth. They don't know what it is, and they'll keep coming. And that one I killed closed from 175 to, we closed 75 yards in probably 60 seconds. And every time, and BG was behind me, and we got the bow there, and we were doing this, just rocking a little bit. It sees that moving, it doesn't know what it is, he wants to find out. And he kept coming, and I'd rock again, he'd keep coming, and it works with antelope great.
Yeah. So let's say you've got an elk. It's coming into the call or something. It's 20 yards away. It now has spotted a bow hunter. He hasn't drawn his bow. Like in that close quarter, is there anything? How do you play that? Because I've seen you kind of move different ways, but
I would try to read the animal, and it's hard to say because you got to read the animal's eye, his body language, everywhere. So there's no one situation's the same.
Right.
Okay, first off, but if there is, and if he's intent on you and he's looking for you, you might be able to peg you, and you might be able to hold him by up and drawing his shoulder back or something, right? It's a feel that's gained through practice, so I can't sit here on camera and tell you one solution. It's for it. There isn't. But if you get anyone out there that plays with horses lots understands what I mean by that, or socially, people that understand the social structure of meeting and greeting people will understand that moment. Certain animals will give you a window and say, yes, you can stand up. Another one say, no, don't flinch a bone. And you got to read that animal, read that moment. You got to read that pressure in that situation, right? And but I have a feeling lots of people stay tucked too long and they let their animals walk away rather than getting after it.
That's one thing I've seen with you is like, and Aron does the same. There's just like, he's not going to err on the side of playing it safe.
No, because we want to shoot something today so we can shoot something tomorrow. If we don't shoot something today, we only get one thing tomorrow.
And I don't know for me if that's from earlier on being too patient once or twice and biting you and being successful from being too aggressive. But I know, and your brother's the same way.
Yeah.
It's go and get on it and get it done quick, because you know what's going to happen when you get on it quick. You got a good, you generally have a good chance. Where sometimes you wait, and I've hunted with a few guys mule deer where they're sitting there strategizing for, quite a while on a stock that's maybe, let's say it's 1,000-yard stock. To me, you really don't have to really start thinking until about 100 yards out. That 900.
It's not sneaky time.
I'm making a plan in that 900 yards. I'll figure it out the last.
You know what I say to my hunters all the time when they ask me, you're like 1,000 yards out? And they say, what are we going to do? We're going to go over that hill and down in and move in on. And time we're over there, our whole plan is going to change.
Yeah. Yep.
Because everything changes.
Yeah.
And you got to adapt and that quick. And that's what Roger does. You can't teach it. He's got it pretty natural. And you just got to go after it. Like Brian's goat stock, he said, what did you say to me? I would have did it different, not going to lie to you.
Yeah, I would have.
And I looked at the mountain, there was options. And then, would have worked. There was different. You have to see it the way your mind and body works and do it that way, right?
The thing is, and I've seen this because generally it does not work out favorable for 4 guys on one stock, but the fact that you were leading it and none of us really said anything, right? I mean, you know what you
can't have a bunch of debates on it.
No, can't have 4 chiefs trying to.
Well, there was at one point that goat on the hill could see me, and I stepped 4 feet right, and I didn't say, "Hey, I'm getting out of the eyes of the goat." You're like, "We can't split up," and I didn't say anything, but I'm like, "Yeah, I know we can't split." I could see what you were thinking. I was gonna go wander off like an idiot, but I was like, "Well, that goat's my fat ass was right in the middle of that meadow. You guys were down farther, the one up." And I was thinking, I'm just trying to get out of the way of the goat. But my point is
you were going towards the bluff.
Yeah.
When I was looking up at the goat's head was behind a rock.
Yeah.
So we only had to go 15, 20 feet straight left.
Yeah.
You were going out of visual on him this way, and I was going out of visual on him this way.
Right. And for me, I wasn't going to argue with you because you're leading the stalk. Yeah. And I didn't need to explain myself. I'm just like, okay. And I followed you. But I've hunted with guys that want to have a debate when you're going in on the stock and you got a leader. And I mean, the thing was too, there was no way we were below the goat. So we were pretty safe. We were just really trying to pick which cliff he was under. And I mean, I'm looking around like, he's got to be.
There wasn't one of us that didn't doubt that other goat is the same one. I was like,
Son of a.
There
like,
was
how could he get there and not be panting and already licking rock?
I just kept thinking he's got to be within 30 or 40 yards of us, and there's so many nooks and crannies in there. One of the happiest times of my year this year was I saw Brian, and I'm like, well, there certainly isn't two goats in these cliffs. I was like, that's got to be him. Yes.
Yeah, it changed those terraces. When you look at them like this, then you're above them, they all become a blended green.
Well, there was three more
just like
above what I thought was the final
was.
one. Once we got up there, there was three more, and the thing that helped me there was. When I said that goat's by the black vertical water, and you said, no, see those two white marks there? It was, whatever it was, 80 yards to the left. When we got up there, that's what I looked at. I saw those two white marks, and I'm like, we got to be right here.
Yeah. So, well, I was slightly confused. I'm not going to lie to you. I got up there.
It did look like the dark side of the moon. Amazing bow hunting country. I mean, that terrace is just everything you want.
Goats are just the coolest animal. I mean, I asked you a few questions about sheep and goats, like how comparable are the hunts?
They're different. Yeah. My wife and I hunt goats every year. We, lots of different hunts I do, but I do make a point to go with Callie, and every year we go out and hunt goats, because they're cool, man. End of story. They're cool.
Yeah. What's the biggest sheep that's been taken out of this area? Is that something we can talk about?
I probably wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I like this area for its mountain animals.
Yeah.
It's good. I really like it, and it's comfortable moose, but not a lot of big moose. I think you're gonna kill 2 or 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah.
And not 12 or 15.
Patrick got a moose. He's happy.
Yep, he's happy.
Yeah. He fell off his horse yesterday. Took a couple dings.
Got a stick caught in his backpack.
Yeah, flipped him off his horse.
Yeah.
But he's excited. I'm glad he's having a good time. It's been fun.
There's some unreal video from this. Tell me about like one thing where Aron hunted with you earlier this spring.
Yeah.
You guys, when we talked about your grizzly hunt, this is Bart that brought the hounds up and hunted the bears with the dogs.
Until I hurt my back, and that's Roger who filled in for me because I couldn't walk.
So, but hunting with hounds is a different kind of deal, and there's not a ton of people that still do it.
No, you know what? I can say I started saving for my first hound dog when I was 5 years old, and managed to get one when I was 9. And it's in your blood or it's not, and it's not how everybody figures. Like, what chance does the animal have? I get to hunt everything in North America, and I love the dogs because it's the most challenging.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not the least. When you hunt everything, you want a bigger challenge. You're always craving a bigger challenge, and the dogs are a bigger challenge. Plus, dogs like him and hounds, don't all you hound hunters out there don't totally hold this against me. He was my camp dog and they work, so I run him. But he's loyal too.
Trigger's the one that he hit me like a linebacker chasing a black bear. Bart's like, get out there and grab the dog. And I'm really happy you were tired from running up that hill that day because he hit hard.
He hits hard. But we also have some very good hounds, and you need some hounds definitely to anchor. But it's a challenge when you do the dog hunt and you hunt the bears on the ground. You can hunt certain bears, old big boars, and you don't have any bears get away wounded. Anybody out there that's hunted Saskatchewan, Alberta, any of those places for bears, they can't say that they haven't got bears away wounded. Roger, you've been with me 5 years. Have we lost a bear?
Nope.
We've never lost a bear. We've let a lot of bears go that we decided not to take, but we have a clean management.
We got Patrick's bear 100% because of the dogs. He shot it without the dogs, put a high shot on it. Those dogs were on that in 5 minutes?
Yep.
You got to the road, let them go.
Otherwise, it's a gone wounded bear.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this came out on a technology podcast we did a while ago where you can track an animal with a Bluetooth knock. So you shoot the animal, and then if you have your phone within 50 to 70 yards, it'll show you where the animal's at, right? If the arrow stays in it, if it doesn't pass through or break off, right?
Right.
Well, it helps you recover those wounded animals that might be in the bush just 20 yards from you, but you just can't find it.
Yeah.
I would much rather use a dog any day of the week, but they're illegal in all these different places.
Yeah, and it's
just
crazy.
ridiculous.
It's just people's perspective on it, right? Yes, there's bad and everything. There's been situations released where, and where it's the videos look bad or whatever, right? There's no doubt. But these dogs for game management, you cannot argue with them. I can go in here. Now they're shutting grizzly bears down, but let's talk management on grizzly bears rather than emotion. Management based on emotion, which is happening to us in the province right now, because our grizzly bear populations are blowing through the roof and they're closing them. And with these dogs, you can go in there and get them and retrieve them. I went with the conservation officers last year for a grizzly that had mauled a guy in my hometown, and they had spent 4 days out there trying to find this bear, see what happened. And it was thick, bad brush, right? Not ones that they could just pound through. Plus, they didn't totally know the location. They had a rough out idea, but the guy was in the hospital, so he couldn't pinpoint things. And they did a very good job getting back to the central area of where it was. And Trigger took off, maybe 90 seconds, retrieved that bear. So then they knew the bear was dead, it wasn't wounded, gone somewhere to get some other moose hunter.
Yeah.
90 seconds or so, minute and a half. And then he woofed in there, and we go in there and we find this 800 plus pound grizzly bear.
Yeah.
It's unreal, though. I mean, like, if you shoot an animal like that, you were talking about it. I was talking about hunting Prince of Wales Island, shooting a black bear, and you having it run 50 yards into the bush. And now, I don't know if it's dead or alive. I think I made a good hit.
Should have been able to have a dog.
Should be able to have a dog. Because for me to be able to walk in there is just
They're better
risk.
to cap the number of dogs. The problem isn't dogs themselves. The problem is when people dump 12 to 20 dogs over it and it looks bad. Right? If you've had 3 or 4 dogs, Scandinavia has a cap of 3 dogs, right? 2 older dogs, 1 pup in training. If you put a cap of like 3 dogs on it, you can do it. You should be able to hunt them for moose. You should be able to hunt them for deer. You should be able to hunt them for anything. It's ethical and proper. And, it doesn't hurt the animals. I ran one big yellow black bear once. We tried to get it for 9.5 hours one day. And we were about 10, 12 air miles from where we started. The next day we went back within 400 yards of where we started the day before. We started him again and got him an hour later.
Yeah.
So he went the whole day before, then he came back the same spot, careless.
Yeah.
Big and ignorant. They just walked big and ignorant.
Well, we should cover this dog thing again on another show. We're getting rained on.
Yeah.
So it's time to wrap up.
Really, the first time it's actually rained since we've been here. Of course, it's when we're doing the podcast.
Yeah.
That's an expensive canyon to get wet.
Yeah.
You better do
It
something.
is.
All right, folks. Thanks for
Thanks
joining us. Stay gritty.
Trigger. Maybe it'll wash some of the shit off you.
Aaron's all worried about petting Trigger.
The future of public lands. All of us own them, all of us use them. Political activists are demanding us to hand over the public lands where the state legislators could transfer and control these lands. U.S. citizens own 640 million acres of public lands, which creates 6.1 million jobs and generates $646 billion per year.
States have been selling off land to pay bills for over 100 years, thus closing access to the public. 39% of original 64 million acres have been sold. The cost of land management would break most state budgets. For instance, who will pay the hundreds of millions of dollars to fight major wildfires each year? It doesn't matter how many promises are made. The financial reality is it will force states to have to sell off our public land.
President Theodore Roosevelt said, "We must preserve our lands for future generations, not merely to the people now alive, but to the unborn people. Our duty to the whole bids us restrain an unprincipled present-day minority from wasting the heritage of these unborn generations."